Hi there, it's Friday. That means it's time for your Friday real estate tip. And today we're going to be talking about what happens at the closing table, which is the last video in a 6-part series that we've been shooting. So please stick around. And as always, we hope that you are liking our videos and sharing them. And if there's anything else that you'd like to know about, please make sure that you comment down in the comment section and we'll be happy to help out. Hey there, thank you for sticking around. As I mentioned, today we're going to be talking about what happens at the closing table, and it's going to be a really short video because here in the state of Georgia, closing takes about an hour. I've seen it last at the most over the last few years, maybe an hour and a half from the time you sit down at the closing table and sign everything to the funding process. So to break that down a little bit, things have changed with the rules over the last few years, and now the buyer will receive about 3 days ahead of closing from the lender and the closing attorney a settlement statement specific to them, outlining all of the charges that they'll be seeing at the closing table. They need to have received it, approved it, signed it, and send it back to the closing table. Once the attorney receives that, then 3 days from that time frame, we can have the closing. If they don't get it back in time, you cannot close. You'll have to push the closing date out. So that has actually been a change that has been very helpful, because one of the snafus in closing previously was the whole seller moving out, buyer moving in change. And with that, what if they don't close? What if the buyer backs out at the last minute? Then I don't want to have a moving van full of stuff, so they would wait. And, in some cases they would ask, hey, can I have 1, 2, 3, 4 days to move out after closing? Well, now that's not really necessary, because 3 days ahead of closing, you know for sure that you're closing. So with that being said, assuming all of that's done and we're moving to the closing table, you show up at the closing table, you will need to both parties show their driver's license to the closing attorney so that they can, prove who you are. And then you sit down, the attorney will go over both sides. The settlement statement will have basically two columns. It's a check and a balance system. And they will go over the seller side first, make sure everything it is as it should be, and that the seller agrees. Then they'll sign off on that part. And then the attorney will go over all the buyer's side and approve, the buyer will approve that. Now again, that document really should have gone out in advance as well. And if you use a good closing attorney like I do, then your client and the other client will have received, buyer and seller both will have received that ahead of time. And so it's just a formality. The attorney's going over everything. Both parties sign that. They'll sign title, and then at that point, the seller is just waiting for the buyer. The buyer will now have a stack about this thick of loan documentation that they will need to sign. A lot of it is stuff that they've already seen, filled out. They're just signing it so that they have a current copy, hard copy, because a lot of times the applications are done online. Then the rest of it is all of the terms of the loan. And as a buyer, if you are the type of buyer who wants to read everything, which of course you have absolutely every right to do so, you would just really need to and should tell your agent ahead of time, hey, I want to read everything before I sign it. And then your agent will make arrangements for you to go into the attorney's office, or sometimes the attorney can actually email you a copy of everything that you'll be signing. I will tell you this though, you don't sign, you don't buy. What you're looking for, though, is any blank that has been manually filled in by a human. That's the things that you want to look for. That's where the mistakes happen. Everything else is sort of boilerplate and doesn't change much from closing to closing, or even loan company to loan company. And so that will all need to be signed off on as is. But certainly take your time when signing off on all of that. Make sure you understand the closing attorney will go over every page with the buyer, and that just takes time. That's actually what takes the bulk of the time at the closing table. Once all of that is done, everything has been signed, the attorney will take all of that paperwork and go and submit it to the lender online. and the lender will need to sign off on it, approve it, and then they will give what's called a funding number. And the funding number is how everybody gets paid. It's how the seller gets paid, the attorney gets paid. If there was an overpayment from the buyer, that's how the buyer will get their money back. Checks are dispersed, keys are provided to the buyer, and the transaction is done. And in an hour, like I said, hour and a half at the most, the buyer has just bought a house. And congratulations, seller, you have made it from point A to point Z, and you are all done. If you would like any help on this, the Barbara and Donna Realty team is always here to answer your questions, so please feel free to reach out. If you choose to do this on your own, hopefully these videos have been of help to you, and we would love to be a resource for you. Referrals, we love referrals, so we look forward to hearing from you. And again, I've mentioned this before, if there is any topic that you would like more information on, please just drop it down in the comments and we will definitely address that. Thank you so much and hope that you have a good and safe weekend.